Hey everyone, and welcome back to What Did I Miss? Where today, I'll be breaking down the newest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds titled Subspace Rhapsody. While the writers and producers behind Strange New Worlds seem to have been going out of their way to prove that this series can do any kind of episode that Star Trek is already known for, this new entry marks a significant first for the franchise, as this episode is the only musical episode in Star Trek history. And with this being the 891st episode of the franchise, that is really saying something. But within this episode, I also thought there were some major developments for the characters and connections to other series and films that I will point out here. But first, I want to thank you for clicking on this video and ask that you hit the like button to help support my channel. Also, do not forget to subscribe so you know when my videos come out. As I just mentioned, Subspace Rhapsody is the first time that Star Trek has released a musical episode, but many long-running series from various other genres have done this to great success, such as the NBC comedy Community, the long-running animated series Futurama, and the supernatural drama Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The latter of which released a stylized poster along with their musical episode, much like how Strange New Worlds did the same in the weeks leading up to the release of Subspace Rhapsody. You may not have realized it from the performances, which I thought were all quite good, but only a few members of the cast have notable vocal experience prior to working on Strange New Worlds. The cast member with the most notoriety in musical theater would have to be Celia Rose Gooding, who conveniently saw a lot of screen time this week. They made their Broadway debut in the rock musical Jagged Little Pill, for which they won a Grammy and were nominated for a Tony Award when they were just 20 years old. Christina Chong, the actress who plays the character La'an Noonien Singh, is also an established vocal artist, who started her career in musical theater in London, even becoming a cast member in an Elton John production. Besides being a very busy actress, she is also a recording artist and has released 3 singles in 2023. While Rebecca Romijn did find success at a young age as a model and actress, she began her career in musical theater as well, and even studied music at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Since then, she is still an admitted fan and sometimes performer of songs from the Victorian-era musical duo Gilbert and Sullivan, a fact that was also built into the backstory for her character Una on Strange New Worlds and was referenced earlier this season during her trial in the episode Ad Astra Per Aspera, as well as during the short Trek episode titled Q&A. This episode begins with Uhura explaining to the audience how the Enterprise has discovered a subspace fold and that they are trying to use it to help their own subspace communication network. Subspace is a theoretical part of the universe that has never really been explained in Star Trek, but we do know that Starfleet and most spacefaring vessels use subspace to send communications at a much faster rate than even warp speed. This giant leap forward in technology is juxtaposed by Uhura basically being reduced to a telephone switchboard operator from the early 20th century on the Enterprise due to Spock wanting to run an experiment on the anomaly. While this is going on, Nurse Chapel has received word from another fellowship concerning an application. In the second season episode titled Charades, we saw Christine Chapel be rejected for a fellowship at the Vulcan Science Academy and not feel too bad about it afterwards, mostly due to her feelings towards Spock, but since then, she seems to have chosen to stay out of a relationship with him after learning from a time and medium displaced Brad Boimler that she and Spock are not together in the future, in the crossover episode titled Those Old Scientists. But don't feel too bad for Nurse Chapel, because someone else might be right around the corner for her, as she learns that she is in fact accepted to a fellowship with a scientist named Dr. Roger Corby. This is a character that was first introduced in the original series episode titled What Are Little Girls Made Of?, where we learn that he and Chapel were engaged to be married. This means that at some point between now and 5 years later during the era of Kirk's Enterprise, that she and this man will be in a relationship. The ship is also awaiting the arrival of Lieutenant James T. Kirk from the USS Farragut. This is now the 4th episode that Paul Wesley has portrayed James Kirk on Strange New Worlds, with the first 2 mostly occurring in different timelines. Those being the alternate future caused by Pike changing his fate in the Season 1 finale A Quality of Mercy, as well as the alternate present timeline caused by the actions of a Romulan in this season's episode Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. In that episode, La'an watched that version of James Kirk get killed in front of her after falling in love with him, and she still harbors those feelings in this episode, even if the man she knows now to be Kirk is not the same man she fell for. This struggle is very similar to one faced by a widower named Benjamin Sisko on the series Deep Space Nine, after he met an alternate version of his former wife that was still alive in the Mirror Universe in the episode Through the Looking Glass. James Kirk currently serves as the first officer on the USS Farragut, a position he rose to at a younger age than any other officer in the history of Starfleet. We learned in the first season Strange New Worlds episode titled Memento Mori that Christine Chapel also served on the USS Farragut due to a pin she wore on Starfleet Remembrance Day. Speaking of James Kirk's appearances on Strange New Worlds, at one point, La'an removes a watch from a safe that is the same watch given to her in 21st century Canada during the episode Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. There is also a scene in this episode of Kirk inside a Jefferies tube looking up, which reminded me of a somewhat infamous picture of a confused James Kirk, played by William Shatner, with his shirt torn once again, while also in a Jefferies tube in the original series episode titled Court Martial. The scene that was without a doubt my favorite of the episode is the auto-tuned Klingon rap performance. The captain of the ship, whose name is Garkog, is played by Bruce Horak, who returns again to the series after playing the Andorian engineer Hemmer. We saw him become a mentor to Uhura and then be forced to sacrifice himself at the end of the first season episode All Those Who Wander. Uhura also mentions how much her relationship with Hemmer meant to her during one of her songs in this episode. The fact that his Klingon character is wearing an eye patch also resembles two of the most famous Klingons in history, General Chang from the film The Undiscovered Country and Martok from the series Deep Space Nine. The Klingons are in a Katinga-class battlecruiser, which is a newer class of ship than the famous D-7 battlecruiser. The first Katinga-class ship on screen was in the original motion picture film, which also debuted the new look of the Klingons themselves. Both ships look very similar though, and it is believed that the only modification made for the Katinga class was that it could fire behind the ship, which is something the D-7 could not do. Eventually, La'an decides to confess to Kirk what occurred in the past between her and another version of him, and before she admits her true feelings, he reveals that he is currently in a relationship with a woman named Carol who is pregnant. This Carol is the character Carol Marcus, who first appeared in the film The Wrath of Khan. In that movie, the audience first learns of the relationship between these two characters and that it produced a son named David. The events of that film took place in the year 2285, and the events of this season of Strange New Worlds occur in 2260, which would make David 24 or 25 when he is first introduced in that film. It is ironic that in this episode, Kirk is talking about his unborn child with La'an, whose ancestor Khan will try and kill Kirk on the day he eventually meets his then grown son. In the final song, one of the lyrics references the Prime Directive. The Prime Directive, or Starfleet Command General Order 1, prohibits Starfleet personnel from interfering in the development of non-warp capable cultures. It was established in the pilot episode of Strange New Worlds that the Prime Directive is still rather new and that the nuances of the policy are still being determined in this time period. After the subspace anomaly is destroyed, the last tune we hear are the notes from the original Star Trek theme. You probably already realized that, but I just thought it was really cool. I wanted to point it out. Well, that was everything I saw, but let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please hit that like button if you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time on What Did I Miss?